It's freezing.
HoonTV!
Man, what a week. It's been a huge week, and this morning I got up really early. I was going to get stuck into doing this stuff, but wasn't feeling very well. So I decided to check myself in a hospital. Had a bit of chest pain, stuff like that, but thankfully it was nothing. So it's probably just overworking myself and not getting enough sleep and stuff like that. But when you're a guy my age, and this is no community message or whatever crap like that, but if you're feeling out of sorts, get yourself checked out. Anyway, getting to the more important bit is the bike is coming together slowly. Had lots of other stuff on the go, but wasn't ever going to rush it anyway. Got the fairings are all there, just got to get the tank painted. The main thing was last time I got it running, still a bit unsure about the engine, but the carbies when I first got it, they were just full of junk and disgusting. So I cleaned them and pulled them right down, put them back together, but I never ended up doing a proper rebuild with them because I didn't have the parts for a rebuild. So I just thought, you know what, I'll suck it and see. Put them back together, got on the bike, it was running fine. They were just leaking, mostly needle and seat, so I was just overflowing fuel and stuff like that. So rather be mess around with it, I just decided, you know what, I'll just pull them off again, buy some bits and give them a tear down and replace all the parts. Best thing is they're already clean, so pull them apart, put the new bits in, stick them back together, chuck them on the bike, and off we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around, show you what I've got here, and then just a few shots and a bit of a time lapse, pull the carbies down, put them back together. I'm no carby expert, so the main thing I'd say is to always take your time and always, where possible, have a owner's manual, that sort of thing, if it's something you want to have a go at yourself. Otherwise, there are experts out there like Shannon from the Carburettor guy in Sydney. He's a guru with carbies. Plenty of other tuning shops around that can set them up on dynos and stuff like that too. So, but if you just want to tinker around and mess around with your own ones, then go for your life. But definitely take your time, get a nice clean space, and try not to lose anything because there's lots of small parts in there. So here goes nothing. That was a stupid face, by the way. Okay, so here they are. This is the set of carbies. I've already pulled this bowl off. Just have a look the other day. And as I mentioned, they're pretty clean because I did pull them down and went right through and cleaned everything out. I've pulled the two jets out of these. They were pretty disgusting as well, so I've cleaned them as well. It was running alright, so that goes to show that I've pulled it down and managed to clean everything up. Not too bad. It's just stuff like the needle and seat wasn't sealing. And yes, that is a set of FCRs. They are the ones I mentioned before that will probably make their way onto this bike at some stage, but just want to get it on the road first with the standard ones on it. That way I can just get away with using the throttle cables that are there and not have to mess around too much. So what I've done is I have got one of these, which is a carburetor rebuild kit. Well, this is actually an empty box, but carburetor rebuild kit, as you can see, to suit 92 to 95 CBR 900. Now it is important that if you are doing a CBR 900 that you get the right years, because they did have different needle and seat sizes and other bits and pieces like that. So just make sure that you got the right one, because 92 to 95 is an 893cc, whereas everything 96 to 99 is 919cc. So anyway, what this kit includes is your 4 rubber gaskets to go on the bottom of the bowls there, the seals around there, and whoop, and a plastic bag. Brand new jets, new idle jets, all your gear basically, new needle and seat, and in here your little springs and O-rings and washers for these ones, and your O-rings to go between them. So what you should be able to do is pull them down, and then all of these parts should replace the ones that came out of it. So that's the plan. The other thing I've got as well is, anyone who knows, and I have probably mentioned this in the past, can't remember, but my cheeky don't try this at home with the old carburetor manifolds that go absolutely rock hard and make your life a living hell to get the carbies on and off, is that I did chuck them in the microwave once for only like 10 seconds and it softens them up. Wouldn't really recommend it because it makes your microwave stink like a burnout afterwards, or burn out and use fuel. But instead, make a heap of noise here, I've got a set of brand new ones. So these are aftermarket ones off that big e-store that everyone gets stuff from. It is pretty hard to get the standard ones as far as I know, but these are pretty good value for money, and I've found that they're actually really good. So yeah, can't really complain. It is really hard to get the actual factory clamps for the CBR 900. So a combination of these good clamps here and these new rubbers, and we should be all mint and ready to go. Some crazy dude doing a wheelie past my house. So anyway, I'm going to chuck this on and start ripping these down. Okay. Get a good screwdriver so you don't strip any of the threads. I'm doing it on cardboard too because still a little bit of fuel in them, so if it drains out it'll just soak straight in the cardboard rather than going all over the bench. Okay, so I'll line everything up so I know where it came from. Pin in here, slide that out, lift up your float and nail and seat. Alright, now while I'm at it, I'm going to move the fuel line. These funky little gentle lever here. You shouldn't have to force anything either, everything should come off pretty easy. Put these onto the manifolds. Pop. Okay, these here are super important, especially when you're putting them back together, because this is the slide with the diaphragm in it and a big ass spring, so when you're undoing them, hold some weight on it because the spring's going to want to pop out. Okay, so these here are the vacuum diaphragms. Now they are quite brittle after a while. If you're lucky enough to have a good set of them, then just be very careful with them. What I do is I go inside there, just push the slider down just to get them out in one piece rather than pulling on the actual diaphragm part. So just got to make sure that all pops out of there, get him out, and that basically holds your needle there. So needles were a bit grubby in this bike, so I will give them a little wipe down, but doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to pop these back like this as well, so I can set them just off the diaphragms, and then everything can sit in its order here as well. One thing too is always make sure that I don't go turning the carburettors around or upside down or over or something like that while I'm doing this, because you can kind of disorient yourself and accidentally forget which way around they were and which bits went where. It doesn't really matter that much because everything should be the same, but if you want to put it back together the way you took it apart, then just try and remember, or take lots of photos as you're going, because as long as you've got a photo of something that you took apart, then you can go back and reference it again. So here we go, got that apart. Oh, still got one O-ring on there, so that's that one, that's what it looks like. So just sit him under that. So pretty much the point where we start splitting them apart. Now a really important bit is like the springs that go on the chokes there. There's springs in here between, and it's really hard to see, but springs between the carbies here. And then also the super important ones, there's actually springs right in here, which is a bit hard to see, but springs right in there between the two levers, or whatever you'd call them. So there's 3 tiny little ones in there, right in there. Don't know if you can see it under my finger. So you got to be really careful pulling them out. They are a bastard to put back in, but they got to go back in, otherwise it won't run right. So got them out. The other thing is the idle jets as well. What I'll do is I'll pull them out now, but the most important thing with these is how many turns in they've gone. So super important to put them back in the way they came out. So usually I think the rule of thumb is 2.5 turns, but what I'll do is I'll count, and you can basically work out how many turns out it is. So it's 1 in, 2, 2.5. So there you go, 2.5 turns out from being bottomed out. So I know that these are all going to be 2.5 turns because they're all set up the same, and I did put them back in the way they came out before. So these coming out, they've got the little spring there, but internally they've also got a little washer and an O-ring, and the O-ring goes first and then the washer goes after it. What I mean is the O-ring goes on the bottom and the washer on top of it. So probably need something small and sharp to get that out though. Get that and the spring out, and as you can tell, these are quite important and quite delicate, given the fact that they supply it with this rubber cover over the top of it to protect it. So there you go, we'll get all these out. Zip, zip, zip. Fast forward here, and we find something small and sharp to get this out. There you go, a little washer. It's ever so slight magnetism to these pliers. And then, alright, there you go. I'm using a tiny Allen key to get these out just because it's got a little ball head on the end of it. It's also not sharp on the end. Still a bit of a bugger getting them out, but once you get him out, it's out. There you go. And they are pretty cactus. They're rock hard and flat. Not ideal. There you go. And number 4, behind door number 4 is, door number 4 seems to be a bit stuck. Alright, there we go. Another shagged O-ring, yay, who cares? Alright, so pretty much all this crap that's come out of here, apart from the floats and the float little shafts there, isn't going back in. So what I'll do in a minute is I'll move all that stuff out of the way, but I'm still pulling them apart. So I'm going to get a spanner and pull out these chokes as well. If I knew where my good spanners were. Alright, chokes out. So here we go. They're quite brittle as well. They're plastic. And keep in mind, these carburetors are now 1994 these are, so a few years old. So there you go. It's not really a lot you can do with them, but yeah. Apart from check them. And check them for cleanliness, so looking straight down the barrel in there, a bit hard to see. I need the GoPro Media Mod with a little light on it. 'Tis coming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in here to keep these out of the way separate, because they are going back in. Pretty much stripped. The main thing is we've still got these. These are our breather pipes, and these are the fuel inlets. So that's what goes in and fills the bowl up via the needle and seat there. So fuel goes in through these two, comes in through the needle and seat. So what we will do now is I've actually got to get a 10mm and an 8mm to undo the ends, and then we can separate the carbies, but just being super careful that all these springs don't go flying everywhere, because that's when you start swearing a lot. Alright, quick pit stop for the GoPro, new memory card. Now I have 10mm spanners, 8mm spanners, and 10mm and 8mm sockets. So I'm going to start with the 10s. And just crack it. This ratchet's a bit sticky. So basically we can, this little shaft here can be a bit sticky. And that there is for your choke cable. So you've got to be super careful too with these. One thing with them is there's like a little locator knob here on the end of the carby, which the choke cable lever slots onto there, as you can see. And if you over tighten or anything, or you're a bit careless doing that up, you can actually snap that off, which is a pain, and that won't locate. But now that you've seen this, you won't do that. So this baby gets slid out of here. Might even give this a clean down with a bit of Scotch-Brite, because it's a bit grubby. Now bear in mind, this isn't a how-to or a tutorial about doing carbies. This is just you watching me pull about a set of carbies. I'll put the nut back on the end there so I don't lose it. That one's out. And then down the bottom is an 8mm. So we'll pop that one off there. 8mm ratchet, 8mm spanner. Oh, there you go. Same deal. This one's a little bit looser, which is nice. Slide him out of there. And then, this is where all the fun happens. Being super careful, you can actually get these springs out by taking them out this way. Just try not to mangle them, because like I said, they are a pain. There's a little locator knob on one side, so just be very careful you don't let them go flying, because last time I tried to get one of these, it wasn't near impossible. So I'm going to put these in my little piece of roll of tape here so I don't lose them. And what that does is that takes up the slack between those two there, and kind of cushions it, I guess. Like I said, I'm no carburetor expert. I'm just the guy pulling apart a set of carbies, having a play, having a look. So same deal on this end. I'll carefully try and pull this out without having it spring out everywhere. And that's all part of the setting up your balance of your carbies as well. So carby balance is something I don't have right now, but it is on the to-do list. And lucky last. Come on, baby, come on. Nope, doesn't want to play ball. Alright, so I'm going to be very careful and start pulling these apart. Very carefully lever these apart, because you don't want to force anything. Okay, and now, so like I said, there's a spring there between the two of them, so don't lose that either. And there you go. And those O-rings are pretty stuffed. Don't know what colour that's supposed to be. So there you go, there's that one there. We'll go to the other end. And they're sleeved as well, so they slide together. So those little sleeves, don't lose them, they go in there. Whatever you do. Now I'm being super careful here. I'm not putting any real load on this. I'm just getting them apart. Can get a bit sticky up in here. Looks like somebody's had a go at this in the past actually, so ugh. There you go. It's a bit hammered around here. Some wonderful individuals been here before. Easy does it. And number spring. Also, don't lose these. These are super important too. There you go. There's your overflow there. So like I said, there's your O-rings for those ones. I should probably show you that. So there you go, there's the O-rings for those, 4 of them. And the O-rings for those, 4 of them. So that one there, that one there. Pull him out. Be really careful with all this stuff because it's super old and a bit brittle. There's no... Oh, there you go. Don't do that. Alright. So, I can actually be cheeky and not pull the center two apart because the center two don't have anything in between them, so to speak. We do have the spring still in there, which was a bastard to get out, but I don't need to do that. But the main thing is the 4 O-rings for these and for these. So, now that my hands are a little bit grubby, I'm going to grab one of these nice microfiber cloths and clean my hands. And give these a little wipe down as well. Old O-rings. Tend to squeeze them and roll them off. Squeeze and roll, squeeze and roll. Yeah, man, these are stuffed. Same deal with these. This is all a bit wet too. Those O-rings must be leaking, so nice cloth, give them a wipe down. Everything's nice and not too bad on these carbies. If you're going full resto on these as well, which I don't have here right now, but a ultrasonic bath would be the go to clean everything beautifully. So, but this is a basic rebuild and a clean up. And you can see too with these O-rings, see the difference between an old one and a new one. But the new one's all nice and fat and in good condition. The old one's all thinned out and not looking so healthy. So see you later. Thanks for coming.
Alrighty.
So I don't upset any petroleum sponsors. This is rubber grease from brand X, and we have, what I do is just a fraction of rubber grease. So pop these suckers on here and then just a teeny little bit, just so it pops in nicely when you put it on. So okay, so I'm going to start putting it back together now. I'm just going to slide these babies out of the way and then get rid of everything that's not being used. So that's all the bits that aren't going back in. I'm just going to get these out of the way. You can keep them, especially the jets. The only tricky part is that if you're using old jets, then it can be a case that somebody might have drilled them out or messed with them or whatever. So it's your own decision really, but new ones aren't that expensive, so in this case everything's brand new here. So here is my tray of delights. Should be very careful with because you don't want to drop anything. Oh, new bits. Nice. Alright, but getting the actual carbies back together is the first point. Oh, missed one. Put him over there. And get a fresh cloth again. Let's keep the hands clean. Oh, so pop this little bugger back in here. Pops in nicely because it's got rubber grease on it. This one here, up in the top there, in past the O-ring. Now with these ones here, they got little slots in them, so you want to make sure the slots are around the right way. Locks onto that there. And then we push them together. Now it is important with these ones that that sits there and not over the other side because it is a bastard. So we get everything lined up, sit that in, and should pretty much push together. This one was a bit tight coming apart, so give it a wriggle. Give that one a wriggle so that both our rings are in. Right, nearly there, but I think it's because this carburetor was a bit tight in this one, so beauty. And then samesies on the other one. Samesies, what the f am I talking about? So we have the carburettors back together. Time to wipe my hands again. Alright, anyway, gonna be really cheeky with this. Got a 400 grit. Gonna be very light here. Bit of brake cleaner on there. Either that or some WD-40 or inox. Probably that. This is straight into the drill. Put them on low speed. And alright, so this set of carbies has been apart before because someone's really butchered these. This thing's even slightly bent, so I don't know who the hell was working on these, but they were rough as guts. You can see like a slight wobble there, but yeah, there's like chunks out of this where they've forced the carbies to go back together, which is lovely. Really appreciate that, whoever did that. Anyway, much nicer than it was before. This should slide in with a little bit of love just because, like I said, somebody's forced it before, so props to that person. Yeah, she's a bit tight through the middle there. Should just slide in nice and easily. I guess that's what you get when you're rebuilding 25-plus-year-old motorbikes. You know what? I just remembered I've got a spare set of carbies in pieces. Boom. Whooshka. Look at that. Thanks for coming. Look at that. Identical, yep. And this one here can go in the spare parts So now that that's pulled apart in the middle, the middle spring can go there. Everything back together like that. And in your David Attenborough voice, you slide this in, should go in a lot nicer than the other one. Still a bit rough through the middle there. Some bastards that right there. The side. Put a nut on it until it's just protruding the end. And then that goes on there, like that. Everything done up finger tight first. Alright, and then we can do them up. Now these you don't have to do them up too tight, you just got to be nice to them. Especially this one, be careful on that one, like I was saying, don't snap that off. Alright, we're all good, everything's still loose and free. Now we can put him back together. So remove all this crap out of the way. Dreading having to get that spring back in there. Back together, got those in there. And the next bit is to get these springs in here, which I should have put in before, but we should be able to get them in like this. Thankfully these are quite squishy springs, so push one end in. Working with the springs sucks because if you aren't careful, you can end up on the other side of the workshop underneath something and then you'll never ever see it again. You go there. First and foremost, I am going to get cloth again, wipe any crap off my hands. Want everything to go back in nice and clean. Needle and seat. So that goes into this little slot here. Now, because I've got the carbies on an angle, that should sit in there. These can be a bastard because half the time you'll go to put it in, so I might even cheat and use a pair of pliers for you normal people, unlike me. Shaky hands and pop. So there you go. And rinse and repeat. And if you want to get yourself ready, you can always set the little shaft in there. Start off with, bring it back so it's just outside the hole. That way when you chuck it in, pop. Cool. I even think it's been apart before or it's had bad fuel in it or something, just given the colour of those two. Maybe they replaced two of them or something like that, but you get that on the big jobs. So now I'm just going to start throwing all the jets back in. And same with the main jets. Get them in. These ones you can pretty much wind them in by hand and then just tighten them. Just got to make sure you don't strip the outside of them. You know you've done them up too tight when you do that anyway, so. Got it coming together now. Everything's nice and free. Beautiful. Now these are the ones that are the fun ones. Dropping them in the holes and making sure they go in. Sit down the bottom. Always supposed to have good lighting as well, so just carefully set them in place. Down the bottom there, and then on top of them Alright, and then we're going to drop my springs in as well. It sits everything down nice. Just give them a little oncey. Make sure everything's seated. And then very carefully taking these off. Little jet condoms. Straight in the holes. Now just to be sure as well, you can double check everything just to make sure you've got the right parts. So if I get my old ones and hold them back to back, make sure they're all the same dimensions. Looks pretty good. See you later. Alright, now with these ones, remember, screw them all the way in. Alright, then out by 2.5 turns, so it's just a matter of keeping an eye on what you're doing. So there's a half, so 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Don't be afraid to count it out too, because otherwise you can confuse yourself. Half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. 2.5. Beautiful. Now we have our bowls, which have these dirty old gaskets in them, which if you have a razor blade handy, can carefully prise these out of here. Yeah, and that's like super stuffed. It's old and hard feeling. Looks alright here, but yeah, it's stuffed, so that can go there. Brand new sexy one here. Now they can be buggers, these, because they'll just fall off. So you can cheat as well and put them on like this, just to make sure they see they won't sit in properly. You just gotta, whatever you do, you don't put them on with them not sitting in the groove properly. Double check everything's good, and you can give it a little bit of a shuffle around to make sure it's sitting in the groove properly before you start going putting screws in. Make sure it's all sitting in right. Oh, somebody next door's cooking something nice. You'll soon know if you've put them in wrong, so I'll just do that down pinky tight like that, then come back and tighten them all up after I'm done. So right, Mr. Time-lapse camera's just decided to go on holidays for a minute, so I'm just got him on charge. Bowls are all back on. No gaskets squished in there. So the old ones here can all go back over with all this junk over here. They're getting used again. So next step, I'm going to put these back in here, give the hands a wipe again. Now these are quite weird the way they sit, but very carefully these go in here, and you have to make sure that the needle lines up with the jet hole in there. Now depending on how they sit, you might get lucky with them sitting nicely in there. You got to make sure these sit in there perfectly. Now spring goes in,
Make sure it all goes in all the way. Give them a jiggle. Keep holding pressure on there, otherwise it'll spring off. And then everything delicately, because these are carburetors, they're not engine bolts. You've got to be nice to them. Don't over tighten anything, because you'll regret it. Alright, there's one in. And making sure that everything's working. Alright, and then I'll just nip these up afterwards. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Time Lapse, get the other 4 in, and then keep moving. Now I'm just checking them just to make sure, and this is probably not the professional way of doing it, but just to make sure everything's pretty much the same. This isn't balancing them or anything, just making sure there's no leaks or whatever. I'll just let 2 go at the same time. A little bit of difference there, but this one on the end here just seems to be a little bit faster, so see how it goes down just a little bit quicker than the rest of them. So I'm going to pull this off again, just double check everything's in there alright, so worth checking. So I reckon I've found this lid here's got a crack in it, so I'm luckily got a spare set of them and they're not too bad. Give this one, it's been sitting around for a while, but give it a clean up. Check the spare one for cracks. And pull this one off and get bits of cloth everywhere, and give it a change over and see what happens. It's not too bad now, still a teeny little bit faster. It might even come down to the fact that somebody's butchered this carburetor a little bit, so hard to say, but it does work, so I'm happy with that so far. This spare can go back in the bin there. And like I mentioned before, these little diaphragms, they do that after a while. They get old and they aren't cheap. So if you get a good set of carburetors, then you're lucky. Making sure the little rings are all sitting in right there. You have to get these lined up. Sitting on the O-ring and a jiggle to make sure everything sits back in place. Alright, one down, time lapse. Alright, there you have it. Pretty much back together. So pop Mr. Tube back on here. This is the tube that goes up to your airbox. Alright, rubber grease the world. Tiny bit of rubber grease in the fuel lines to get them in so they don't have to be forced on. And then beautiful. These crazy little Honda hose clamps here. All nice and good. Everything feels good in there now. Nice O-rings everywhere. all nice and tight, so we're looking good. So at that point there, where I'm going to flip it over, get our little chokes, which basically did nothing with them, just checked to make sure there was no gunk or crap in there, so they can sit back in where they go. And we're good. Everything's all 2 little stepped washers. This bugger goes around this way and then it sits over these. Need to give it a bit of a jiggle, but once she's on, all should sit in nicely. So washer on top there, make sure it sits in right. Just do it up slowly and then you can actually just do that to make sure the washer's sitting right. Beautiful. Just make sure everything's nice and tight, but not too tight. And then getting there, got a little spring there. Now that's the important spring that goes on there. I'm going to put that in last though. Back to the rubber grease again, and the overflow pipes. Pop, pop. Now here's the fun bit. Beautiful. So these are the replacement ones, and to give you an example, here's an old used one and here's a brand new one. Design wise, spot on, even though it's an aftermarket one. And the smart thing is too, like everything's as per usual, and even the part numbers, like everything on there says MWO, it's the Honda stuff. It says carb up, so that's the side that goes onto the carburetor. But as you can see with this one here, this is super rock hard, this one. So super rock hard, like I can't even, look at that, it's just not even springing back. Look, it's old, super old, whereas this one here, beauty. So that one there, see you later. Now we've got our 4 here, so we'll line them all up the same. So we make sure that all of the clamps go on the same way around, because it is quite important, because the last thing we want to do is get the clamps touching any of the mechanisms in here. Otherwise it'll get caught up on there and can be disastrous, so we'll be very careful with that. What you can do is back them off, pop them over there. They do have little locator pins under there inside, so we back him right off. Should be able to pop it off. And then on this one here, over the locator pin and pop it down over there. And this 2 little slots here go over the little slots there. So basically that's carb up, goes down in there and pops nicely into place. And then make sure everything's all lined up right. Yeah, you'll soon know if you got them on the wrong way as well, because they are slightly tapered inside, so that won't be a smooth transition inside there, if you can see that. So anyway, I'm going to keep going with them, and same deal with this. Once that's off, you can do the exact same thing with this side. There is like a little locator pin thing on this one, goes down in there, so that same deal. So pop him off, super tight because this is super old, so that goes down on there. So I'm going to keep going with these, get them all together, get Mr. Time Lapse happening, and then I'm going to slap them on the bike. So Alright, I found that these ones here on the bottom, they're the ones that you have to do up when they're on the bike. So do them up just enough so that they're on there, but don't do them up too tight because it will make it painful to get them on the bike. It is a pain doing them on the bike anyway because you got to be a gymnast to get your hands in there, but just so there's a little bit of movement in there, but it will make it much easier anyway with new rubbers, so happy about that. So I'm pretty much ready. I'm going to just throw the idle cable in, and I remembered that this was basically done up so that it was about a turn in. There you go, full set of carbies ready to go back on the bike. So I'm going to change my shots up and throw them back on the bike.
The set of carbies ready to go back on the bike. I'm going to call it a night and put these on in the morning because it is currently almost 8 o'clock at night anyway. So I live in suburbia, so I don't think my neighbours would like it much if I start revving the crap out of this tonight. So it is also freezing here. If you're in America, it's about 44 Fahrenheit and about 7 degrees Celsius at the moment. So I'm freezing. I'm going to go in, have some dinner, come back, put these on in the morning, get the thing fired up, and hopefully, fingers crossed, should run pretty good. So yeah, jury's still out about whether the engine's any good, but we'll get the thing running and take it out, and probably get one of my mates to take it out for a decent ride once it's all registered, get it all checked out and everything like that. My shoulder's still not up to it, but see you tomorrow. Rightio, carbies are back on. We've got my super dodgy fuel rig here. It's not really, I mean, it's not a bought one, but it works. It's all sealed, and filled it up with some premium fuel there, and it's gone in. Nothing's overflowing or flooding, which is awesome because that was the problem before. It was just starting to flood up into the carburetor, so I had to quickly get the fuel out of there before it drained itself into the engine, which was no fun because that was half the problem before. I was just filling the engine with fuel. The throttle is a teeny bit sticky, but I think that is due to the fact that there's not enough gap in here, so I'm just going to have to get that back a bit. You can either do it like this or grab an air compressor, which I might do just to loosen him up. It's not too bad. Just a little bit of massaging, but it always pays to have a bit of a gap in there so that you're not pushing against that with your hand. It is much easier with an air compressor though, just jam it in there as long as it's not glued on and then bring it back. So I think I might do that in a minute, but let's see what happens. So yeah, so alright, there we go. It's a sticky old throttle. Come on. Alright, might have to put some lube in that. Maybe it's old, maybe the key's a bit worn out. So here we go. It's a bit hard holding a camera and doing this at once. There you go, success. Carbies aren't balanced or anything like that, but I wasn't really making any adjustments to them. I was just replacing the parts in them. All new jets, new needle and seat, no leaks, so very happy. Just going to wind up this idle and let it warm up a little bit. get stuck into some other stuff. Now, went through before on the loom on this bike, I basically spliced together two looms because I had one that was bastardized in the front and one that was bastardized in the charging system, but otherwise they're both good. So I pretty much used the back half of one to make a good one because the headlight part of the other one was ruined. So one good loom out of two. It's all taped up all nicely now, everything works. I've checked it all. Got the fuel pump in there, that's not being used right now, so I've just disconnected it, but it is rattling away like they do. And I'm at the point now where I've got to just sort out a few other bits and pieces so I can get the fairings on. I am using a later, like 94 Speedo, which has got the lights across the bottom, or idiot lights, or whatever you want to call them, in a row, whereas the early ones had them in a square. The main reason I'm using them is because I am using the later loom with the Speedo pickup in the front sprocket instead of a cable drive Speedo. This is all purely because this bike is being built out of spare parts and not a total resto. So the fact that I'm using those parts is just for the availability of them. Plus it means that there's an easier conversion with the 17-inch front wheel. It's got a CBR 600 F3 front wheel in it, and the Speedo drive is just there and it's all electronic. So all good and nice and everything's working. I've got the rear fairings sitting on there and all the rest of them are pretty much ready to go on. Still got to get the tank painted. Not too bad a fit. They're not perfect, but just for a neat little sort of street bike rider, it'll be alright. Got a guy coming today who may possibly be the guy that's going to paint the tank for me. He's going to have a look at it while he's here. He's a bit of a CBR guy as well, so I'm helping him out with some other bits for his bikes. But yeah, getting there. And yeah. Oh, and the other cool thing is, which I probably will put on this, is this little puppy here. Now, this is the original fairing stay, CBR 900 fairing stay, and it's all nicely powder coated and straight, which is quite rare for these if they're second hand. So I got it done, but then I just happened to get my hands on this. I got two of them. This is a Harris one from the UK, weighs absolutely nothing, sits in the top of the head stem and looks pretty damn cool. So I've got one for this one, and I've got a spare one for the other bike as well, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use it in that one yet because that one's not quite how it's supposed to be in that bike. I'd like to get the original one, which I should be able to get to suit the Arian bike, but got to get this bike finished first and get the other bike all back together and painted. Then I'm going to get stuck into that bike. So just trying to systematically do them rather than trying to do 3 bikes at once. So yeah, very happy. Bit of progress, and just going to keep working on this and get it together. So yeah, not too far off now. Still lots to do though. Still lots to do. Man, it feels weird talking these GoPros. Anyway. So there you have it. That's another quick update on the bike and what's going on. It is running again. The carbies seem to be working nicely. I'm pretty happy with them. Obviously, until it's being ridden under a bit of load, won't really know what they're doing, but the jetting is all pretty much standard. It's got standard gearing on it, standard headers, just with that muffler on it. Yeah, so that's that. But yeah, thanks for watching this, and more updates soon. As I've sort of pushed, this isn't really like a how-to or a complete end-to-end resto. It's just a bit of fun throwing an old bike back together from a spare frame I had, and yeah, but really appreciate your support. So please like, comment, subscribe. Also, if you get a chance, check out 3footedmonster.com. It's a new little project slash product I'm working on, and also pretty soon might have some HoonTV gear up for grabs. So yeah, keep an eye on the HoonTV Facebook page, and I'll also be mentioning it on the YouTube channel. Another video coming out really soon on the Land Cruiser, and also I'm doing something pretty cool with the Falcon U, which is installing a fire system. That's from Tony over at Motorsport Gear in Sydney. Pretty awesome bit of kit, and yeah, something I wouldn't drive the car without having in there either. So good insurance for race cars. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one, and yeah, see you soon.